I'm particularly excited when I see my students sitting here. My students whom I taught maybe 40 years ago. But I'm not going to teach you mathematics today. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world today that are besieged with problems. Nations face problems, societies face problems, family face problems, and individually, we face problems of different kinds. This afternoon, I would like to share with you some of my experiences when we deal with problems in life. Inability to deal with problems can sometimes bring serious implications, disappointments, that we find sometimes so frustrating. And problems, if not handled properly, can even lead to disasters and tragedies. However, problems are not necessarily bad. When we are able to deal and overcome problems, they boost our confidence, self-confidence. They broaden our outlook, and they raise our self-esteem and sharpen our skills. Now the world pays well for those who are able to solve problems. As a mathematics educator, I find solving mathematics problems very enjoyable and stimulating and enjoyable. Let me illustrate this with a few problems, two to be exact, because I don't want to be carried away when I start solving mathematics problems. This is an example. By putting in the correct mathematical operations and symbols, we are able to solve this problem. At a glance, it may look very difficult, but when we analyze, when we look deep into it, we can solve these problems. We will focus only on the first four. The first problem we want to take is this one. All of us can do it quite easily. The second one, a little bit, not so difficult. We can solve them. The third one, if you know some basic algebra, this can be solved. Well, the difficult one is the first one. How do we solve with 3 ones, how do we make it equal to 6? If you know some basic probability, you'll be able to solve it. You put a bracket, you add up all the ones, and you put an exclamation mark. Actually, in mathematics, that is called factorial. Then you get 3 factorial. 3 factorial means 3 times 2 times 1. That equals to 6. I give you another one. The first one, easy. The second one, not too difficult. But the challenging one will be the last one. As a mathematics student, probably you will use arithmetic progression to solve these problems. You apply the formula, but you don't really know how the formula come about. But you can solve it. But as a mathematics enthusiast, I will solve it this way. We take the second one. 1 plus 2 plus 19 plus 20. I take the first number and add to the last number, I get 21. I take the second number, I add to the 19, the second last number, I get 21. And in that sequence of numbers, I have 10 pairs of 21. Is that correct? Are you following me? 21 times 10 is 210. Okay? But you use your arithmetic progression formula, you will also get the same answer. It takes a little longer. The last one. You can still use the formula to solve, but I use my method to solve. I solve it by adding the first number to the last number, the second number to the second last number. That will come to 1,001. And how many pairs of 1,001 are there? How many are there? 500. So 500 times 101 will give you 5,500,000. That's how a mathematic enthusiast will think and will solve this problem. But this afternoon, I'm not going to go on because I can go on and on and on. And you probably won't share my enthusiasm. But I want to talk about something more practical. How do we solve relational problems? Because as an individual, we have to face all kinds of problems. Financial problems, health problems, emotional problems, mental problems, and relational problems. Relational problems are usually difficult to deal with. They are complex, and they often cause us heartaches. And relational problems are common among the rich, the famous, the well-educated, and ordinary people like you and me. However, these problems can be overcome when we treasure relationships more than benefits. Very often, we consider our benefits more important, our opinion more important, our ego more important, and need to be safeguarded at all costs. We don't care much about what the other people feel or how the relationship will lead to. 10 years ago, I went through a difficult time in my life. I have devoted 30 years of my time, 30 years of my energy, my passion, my resources to the well-being and the purposes of this organization. But due to some irreconcilable differences, I have to leave. Someone told me, don't leave, we fight, and we will stand by you. To fight or to fly is a difficult position. It's a painful struggle that I have to deal with. Finally, I decided to leave. I left with no confrontation, no ill feelings, no arguments, no fights. I left amicably. As I look back now, I am glad that I made the right decision. Because today, I can walk with my head held high, with my conscience clear, and with a smile in my face. Because those relationships remain intact. I did this simply because I treasure the relationships that I have taken 30 years to build. So one of the ways to overcome relational problems is that we must treasure the relationships more than the benefits of self-benefits. That leads us to the number 2 principle. Very often we see family or close friends dispute being flashed in the public eye. And they use reasoning, they use authority, they use office, They use seniority, financial superiority to try to solve these problems that they encounter. But I would like to suggest that we embrace positive attitudes such as love, generosity, empathy, sacrifice, forgiveness, gentleness, compassion, to deal with all these problems. Because we know that when we exert our authority, sometimes we do it with criticism, sometimes we do it with skepticism, and they never will lead to good results. I'm always reminded with this story that stays with me. This is an ancient story, ancient Jewish history recorded that this man, Abraham, who was a Jewish leader. He was a wealthy man. He lived thousands of years ago. And he was a wealthy man. In those days, if you are wealthy, you have gold, you have silver, you have flocks, and you have tents. His nephew, Lot, also has become very rich. But unfortunately, the place that they lived in is too small for the two of them. And furthermore, their herdsmen began to quarrel. And Abraham has the wisdom to tell Lot, let's not quarrel. Let's part company. So he told Lot, you go to the left, I will go to the right. You go to the right, I will go to the left. We don't fight. So Lot looked around and he saw that the land that he could see, that is the land in Jordan, was fertile and well watered. So he chose, of course, he chose. And left with Abraham, he chose the uncertain and the unknown land. Abraham, as the uncle, he could have made the choice first because he was more senior. He could have exerted his authority, but he didn't because he treasured his relationship with Lot. So history recorded that Abraham became a great Jewish leader, and his story is being told until today. And to me, it's a reminder and it's an inspiration. That leads us to the last point, the last principle. All of us are very familiar. It is more blessed to give than to receive. When we apply this principle appropriately, a lot of relationships can be overcome. You will make a positive difference in your relationship, especially with your loved ones. When we are willing to give of our time, our resources, our encouragement to resolve problems, we can be amazed by what the outcome may be. This story happened in Stanford University, 1892. This young man, who was an orphan, was struggling with paying his university fees. He and his friend had an idea. They want to organize a concert to raise money to pay their fees. So they approached this famous pianist at that time, Ignacy Paderewski. And he agreed on a fee of $2,000 for a piano recital. So the big day came, but unfortunately, he could only sell 1,600 ringgit. So he, disappointed, he and a friend went to see Paderewski after the event with the $1,600 and a $400 check, which they promised to honor as soon as possible. But Paderewski said, this is not acceptable. He tore the check and he returned the $1,600 to this young man. And he said, you deduct all the expenses, pay your fees. If there is anything left, you give to me. Perlis later became the Prime Minister of Poland. He was a great leader. But unfortunately, the First World War broke out. And his people, the Polish people, 1.5 million of them were starving because there was not enough food. Perlis reached out to the American Food and Relief Administration for help. And the man there heading this organization was Herbert Hoover, who later became the 31st US president during the Great Depression. Very soon, Hoover shipped all the food grain to Poland, and the calamity is averted. Perlis was very grateful. Immediately after the war, he went over to America to want to thank Hoover for his noble gesture. But when he was thanking him, Hoover interjected him and said, "Mr. Prime Minister, you do not have to thank me. You may not remember, but many, many years ago, you helped 2 young men to go through university. I was one of them." The world is a wonderful place. What goes around comes around. When we apply this principle of giving, sometimes the outcome can be beyond our comprehension and understanding. Jack Ma has this saying to say, in life's journey, we need to be healthy in order to be happy. Health does not involve only the physical well-being and also the financial well-being, which the world are focusing. When we say health, it encompasses our emotional health, our relational health, and our mental health. This afternoon, I share with you these 3 principles because I live by these principles. I experience these principles in my life. And I believe if you appropriately apply this principle, you have to use your discretion. I'm not saying that you simply take the principle and apply in every situation. That is not going to be very wise. But you need to exercise wisdom to apply them. When we apply this, we can live, I'm sure, happier, more meaningful, and fulfilling lives. I leave you with this note. Be a problem solver. Don't be a problem. Thank you.